All right, everybody, we're diving into the big news this morning that BCE has finally cut the dividend. If you've been a watcher of the channel, a reader of mine, I have been pretty much saying that this dividend needs to be cut for probably 15 to 18 months now, and they finally pulled the trigger, cut it this morning. If you haven't been following me, then I highly suggest you head down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down below. Due to popular demand, a lot of requests from visitors, they wonder why I ever got rid of this, but we're going to be getting back to the free premium subscriptions at the end of every month. I'm going to pick random comments from the videos that I make that month, and if you're subscribed to the channel and you comment down below, I will reach out to you and give you a free year to our Stocktrades premium subscription. And as always, there's that link in the description below for 3 of my favorite stocks for 2025. They are currently crushing it this year, despite the markets being a little bit rocky. But let's dive right into Bell's quarter. So the company reported revenue of $5.9 billion and earnings per share of 69 cents. Now, when we look to estimates, this is actually relatively in line on the revenue front, but earnings actually exceeded expectations by quite a bit. And I do think the company is actually green on the day. Let's look at this. Yeah, they're about 4.6% in the green. And I do believe a lot of that is due to the fact they're going to be deleveraging. They're finally cutting that dividend, and they're going to be getting back to just effectively restructuring this company to be successful over the long term. When we look to free cash flow, we're seeing an 838% improvement. It came in at $800 million. And overall, the operations from the company are still relatively weak. I mean, we had a decline of 7.4% in product revenue. Servicing revenue fell 0.4%. And overall, the company declined by 1.3% year over year. Earnings are down 4.2% year over year. And although it was over and above what analysts had expected, there wasn't very positive expectations for this company moving forward. It has struggled for many years. They kind of got caught up in a, rapidly increasing interest rate environment, kind of got caught with their pants down, and ultimately they are paying the price right now. Shareholders have paid the price for 2-3 years now, and overall, when we look to the results, they just aren't really all that good. We're looking at adjusted EBITDA down 2%. Internet revenue increased by 2.4%. Business solution revenue was up 8%. Wireless service revenue was down 0.8%. And wireless product revenue was down 8.8%. So I do believe that the wireless product revenue is more so maybe an indication of the current environment, because I would imagine this would include a lot of devices, and people just aren't blowing their money on brand new phones anymore. I mean, I think this is actually likely a permanent shift caused by the inflationary environment back in 2022, the overall impact on the consumer, especially the lower and middle class, where the cost of living has risen so much that people are just going to start cutting costs wherever they can. When we actually go down to the media division, it actually wasn't that bad. And this has been one of the weaker portions of the business for quite some time. I mean, digital revenues increased 12%, 3.8 million Crave subscribers, up 22% year over year. I have a feeling that this is probably going to be due to something like The Last of Us. I know they came out with the second season. It's on Crave. These, big headline shows that do end up hitting these streaming companies, they end up increasing membership. Whether or not this sticks, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not, I don't pay attention to the Crave segment of the business all that much, but overall, it was a pretty good quarter for the media segment, much better than its mobility segment, which is going through quite a bit of trouble. So when we look to the balance sheet, we're looking at a net debt leverage ratio of 3.6x. So this would be their net debt to adjusted EBITDA. And what the company wants to do is to get this down to 3x minimum. Now, the interesting part here is prior to when BCE got into all this trouble, they, I believe, had a net debt leverage ratio of 2.5x. So they realized they couldn't hit it, and they just ticked the leverage ratio upwards. Like I said, and you can go back to any of my previous videos on BCE, there was a lot of warning signs here from a management team that desperately wanted to keep that dividend intact and ended up destroying a lot of shareholder value in the process. So that leverage ratio did increase 0.3x, which ultimately is a good thing. We want to see this lower. And obviously we look at the annualized BCE common dividend established at $1.75 per share. So this is a 56% cut to the dividend. I'm actually a little surprised. I figured they would not have cut the dividend this much because at $1.75 per share, it does start to become very affordable. I mean, when we head to the overall shares outstanding for the company, we have 921 million shares outstanding, around there. And at a $1.75 dividend, they're paying about $1.6 billion in free cash flow towards that dividend, and their trailing 12-month free cash flow comes in at $2.56 billion. So the dividend is now in a position where it is well covered, which is a good thing because the company is going to be able to take excess free cash flow and actually grow the business and not be absolutely buried by debt, which has been the issue for this company for many years. So when we look to the guidance, we're looking at -3 to 1% revenue growth for 2025. So this company is still going to really struggle to grow. When we look to adjusted EBITDA, we're looking at 2% decline to 2% growth. And when we look to capital intensity, and this is actually a fairly important metric for Bell, this accounts for the amount of capital expenditures relative to its revenue. So a capital intensity ratio of 14% is indicating for every dollar that BCE generates in revenue, they're going to spend around 14 cents of that on capital expenditures. Now, this was in the high 16% range a year ago, I believe, and it was upwards of like 19-20% when interest rates were low and these companies were going through some pretty rapid expansion. Now we're looking at adjusted earnings growth, 13% decline to 8% decline. Not really a good sign, but kind of paints a picture of the current environment for this company. And we're looking at free cash flow growth of 11 to 19%, which is relatively good. If we're looking at trailing 12-month free cash flows of $2.5 billion, if they can increase that, get that closer to the $2.75-3 billion range, we're looking at like a 50% free cash flow coverage ratio on the dividend. Prior to this, it was like 120%. It was unsustainable. It was very obvious it was unsustainable, but management kind of seemed to continue to kick the can down the road. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is their acquisition of Ziply Fiber. So if we remember what this company did with Ziply, they sold MLSE, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. They sold that to Rogers. And initially they had intended for the proceeds of that to go towards debt. They wanted to effectively pay down debt, repair the balance sheet, and then, I believe it was like 2 or 3 weeks later, they go and they spend all that money on Ziply Fiber. Actually, they spent over and above what they spent on what they got for the sale of MLSE. So they actually ended up adding more debt. So the company announced this morning that they would announce a partnership with PSP Investments, which is one of Canada's largest pension fund managers. They have around $265 billion in assets to support the expansion of this U.S. fiber business. So PSP is going to give Bell around $1.5 billion. I believe it is fairly flexible on how much they can give. And this should help Bell generate more free cash flow, keep more free cash flow inside of the company instead of having to expand so fast, spend all that money to expand the network south of the border. And what they've done is, so BCE through Ziply Fiber, they will retain a 49% equity stake while PSP will own the controlling 51%. So BCE will retain 100% ownership of the existing operations while the new partnership, PSP, will get 51% of that growth. And this deal here just, it puzzles me to a certain degree, because when BCE made this acquisition, their main driver for making that acquisition was the fact that, they get the current assets, but they also drive the future growth. So they were talking about how promising of an acquisition this was from a growth perspective. And now they've gone, 3-4 months into this, and they've sold over half of the growth away to PSP. Yes, it will help in regards to helping BCE repair that balance sheet and ultimately, get back on track, shore up the company, position it better for the long term. But I mean, they just seem to be making a lot of deals without that much thought, which kind of leads me to my next point on this company is whether or not I would be buying it at this point in time, because if you'll remember what I've said in previous videos, I do believe that when BCE cuts the dividend, it will be a very strong market performer. I still do think that the next step for this company should be overhauling this management team, because let's be completely honest, it has been a complete and utter disaster over the last while. This is a management team that, looks to be protected from a rapidly low interest rate environment we've seen throughout this period. We're talking post-financial crisis up to 2022. And it kind of seems like the first chance that this company had to face any sort of headwinds or any sort of difficulties, they made every wrong move imaginable. They maintained the dividend for way too long. They got buried in debt. I mean, when we go to the long-term debt of this company, it has increased from $20 billion in June of 2015 to nearly 40 10 years later. And if we actually look to what happened, over the course of the pandemic, we're looking at, $29 billion right when interest rates started going up. They've increased that debt by over 33% in possibly the worst environment to do so. And then they sell MLSE. They state that they're going to start to deleverage, repair the balance sheet. They spend all that money on Ziply Fiber, and then a couple months later, they sell off half of the growth to a pension fund to help them expand south of the border, when their main purpose of doing this acquisition was to benefit from the growth. Yes, they still will benefit a bit. They get half of the growth, but they've sold half of that off. And yes, this will allow it to maintain more free cash flow. They'll have to lay out less capital in order to expand south of the border. But ultimately, I mean, why not announce this initially? Why not announce this deal initially and partner with them initially? It just kind of seems they're scrambling at this point in time. And, they're doing this to accelerate the U.S. fiber expansion without increasing its debt load, but they're also, selling off half that growth. So overall, it was a pretty ugly quarter from the company, one that was very much expected. It's doing the right things now, but the thing is that the right thing should have been done 2 years ago. In the process, it's drawn down. It's got to be 60-70% at this point in time. We're looking at pandemic highs of 74% down to 30%. And a lot of people had mentioned, if the company cuts the dividend, the stock price is going to bomb, things like that. I mean, the market knew that this dividend was unaffordable. And in keeping it, I really think they did a lot more damage than they would have done if they had just cut it in the first place. If they cut the dividend back at this, $55 range back in 2024, maybe the stock dips down to $40, but then we see a rebound because free cash flow is ultimately going to improve. There's going to be a lot more wiggle room for the company, but instead they hung on, and ultimately we're sitting here at a huge drawdown on a blue chip stock that a lot of retail investors own, a lot of pension funds own, a lot of income producing ETFs own, a lot of Canadian index funds own, and ultimately in my opinion, this has been one of the worst managed companies in the post-pandemic environment out of all the large cap Canadian stocks, and I don't even think it's close. Would I buy the company today? Probably not. I know I did say that the company would become a buy on the cut of the dividend. I said that the company would probably perform quite well when the dividend is cut because coverage ratios would improve and ultimately the overall operations would improve. But I just think they need a fresh management team here. The Ziply sell-off, half of the sell-off of the growth, it's just weird. It's weird for them to make this and then kind of restructure that, a couple months down the line. And overall, fresh management team and a well-covered dividend. I really do think that this company could do well solely on the basis of valuation expansion. The company has absolutely no growth. I mean, we head back down here to the guidance. I mean, they're effectively guiding for flat growth and decline in earnings. there's not going to ever be that much growth for this company. I mean, it is effectively a bond proxy. I mean, if Bell grows 5% a year, that would be probably a miracle just because of the current environment. It could work out with that US fiber expansion, but this is not going to be a company that grows very fast. So if you're buying it at this point, you're probably buying it on the back of a valuation expansion. It's trading at only 10.8x. It's price to free cash flow. I mean, typically this company is traded at 16x over the last 5 years, 16.5 over the last 10 years. So in that regard, there's probably potential there, but I'm not sure I'd touch this thing until they overhaul management, which is probably not going to be something that is going to happen. So it's probably a pass for me, even with a dividend cut, although I do expect some of this price to recover now that they've finally done the right things. As always, everybody, head down below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment. I will be selecting 2 random comments from my videos in May, and I'll be giving away a couple of free $300 a year premium subscriptions to those commenters. I will post that video separately, not in my main videos, and you can get into the platform, join over 2,000 other Canadians who are utilizing it to grow their portfolios. And as always, there is that free report down below of 3 stocks I really like for 2025, and stay tuned for more great investing content.